God is my ultimate source. Like, he's my financial provider. He's literally taking me from here to there. So whether or not, if something were to happen or whatever, he's still going to be there. And
all the time.
that's true. That's truly my source, right? I don't depend on my husband to provide. I don't depend on, because at any minute we're human, we can lose our jobs at any minute.
Yes.
So it's like,
or you can get sick, or a lot of things.
or you can get sick, or
Yeah.
no, absolutely. And it's like, your ultimate source, he doesn't get sick.
Yeah.
He's God. He created heaven and earth.
I love it so much. Welcome back to Journeys of Life podcast. Today I have Brenda Villafranco. Did I say that correctly?
You did, yeah.
Yeah, I have my friend Brenda. She's here to tell us her life story. Hi, Brenda. How are you?
Hi, Fatu. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you.
No, the pleasure's all mine. Thank you for accepting. Um, so just tell us, who is Brenda?
Sheesh. That's a question, like, that could go really deep, but I think Brenda is ultimately someone that, so let's rewind a little bit. Okay. So I grew up Catholic. Let's go with that. So my first, up until the age of 16, 17, I grew up Catholic, and, my family, they're from El Salvador. And so my parents were basically wanting a better life to come to the States. And so they were the ones out of all of their siblings that took that leap of faith. And they're like, we want to make it to the United States. We know that there's a better life than here. And so they left in their mid 20s or so, and they came with nothing, right? And so I think who Brenda is goes back to like those roots of how I was. I wasn't the first child, and I wasn't the second one. I was the fourth one. And so for me, a lot of that was shaped with my two older siblings, which is kind of cool in a sense, because I got to experience the best of both worlds. And when I say that, it's because I know 80s music and I know 90s music. And so it all kind of like, oh, I know all of this, right? And it's because they listen to it. They were both very different personalities, very
Your
different.
brothers?
Yes, my brothers, and different characteristics. And so, one was all hip hop, the other one was more of like the R&B and different genres of music, whether that's pop or whatever. And so, then I came in. So the neighborhood I grew up in wasn't the best neighborhood. And my parents, because they saw that my two older siblings were the ones that were kind of straying away into the path that they didn't want them to go into. So my parents decided to make a move into more of the suburb community that had better schooling. And so that's where I came in, the fourth or fifth grade. And so who am I? I'm going to say I am a child of God. That's for sure. I gave my life to Christ my senior year of high school. And what's really interesting about that is that the way I gave it, I don't have a story. Like, I didn't do drugs and was down in the pit. That's not my story. So like, usually when people ask like, oh, how did you get close to Christ? And it's like, it's not the most interesting story, to be honest. It was my parents left on a trip back to El Salvador, and my older brother stayed with me. At that time, my aunt called us and said, hey, there's a Christmas play at our church. And she was already a Christian. And we were like, no, we're going to go ahead and go to our Catholic church. Like, we were very like resistant.
Okay, pause. So hold on. You have to educate me. So Catholic and Christians, don't they like worship the same thing, or like what's the difference? I don't know.
Not in my experience. So like, Catholic seems more ritual.
Okay.
So all my life, I would go to Sunday school. I would go to Saturday morning school. But there wasn't really like a purpose. Why am I going every Saturday? Why am I going every Sunday? When I asked my parents, they were just like, it's part of our tradition. We're Catholic,
Yeah.
right? That was like their answer. Whether they knew and or they didn't know. I think
Mhm,
they didn't want to say, we don't know, right?
mhm,
And so that's the difference. So when I gave my life to Jesus, I mean, I'm talking about it transformed me in such a way. I went back to Catholic mass and I was like, what was the difference? The difference
mhm,
was that the Holy Spirit wasn't in me.
mhm.
In my experience, again,
How
in my
that's pretty brave because how did your parents take that?
they were resistant. They really
Yeah.
were. But I think what really changed their mind
Mhm,
about being invested into Christianity is
mhm,
because my older brother at that point had become an alcoholic. And so when he had struggled with that for years, he actually gave his life to Jesus and he quit cold
okay.
turkey for the next 6 to 8 years. So they saw that transformation that they didn't expect to ever see. And that's
So they're like they're Christian now, or they just agree with your choice, like.
no, 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 they're Christian as well too.
Oh, okay, okay.
As a matter of
Wow,
fact, my
you're
entire family,
brave.
yeah, my entire family is. They all like everyone converted. It wasn't all at once. It's just over
Mhm.
the years.
Casually, because they saw difference in things. Okay. Wow. So that's pretty brave because most people we know, like, especially if it's like a cultural thing, and I know most immigrants, like, the culture is deep.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's very hard to just stand up to something that is not familiar to
I
the
couldn't
norm.
yeah, no, I get that, but I couldn't control it that night. When I went and saw that play, I don't know
Mhm,
what it was. It really nudged my heart.
mhm,
So when I say like, "Oh, how did" I don't have that story. My story was I was invited. Initially, we said no. We
mhm,
finally went the second time because she called us again. It
mhm.
was like, "Alright, let's just go. Go have dinner or whatever." And I went and I was so touched by that play that I walked to that altar. That was it. That
Right
was it
then.
for me. Yeah.
Okay,
You know?
wow. Okay, there's brave. Brenda's brave, everybody. So she's that's like that's a lot of courage because I know how just most of us we put on a mask because of our family, our friends and stuff like that. And if you take it off, it's like everybody kind of pushes back. So a lot of people don't never take off the mask that they actually put on, and they never become who they really want to be, right?
Mhm.
Which is like tough. So kudos to you for doing that. How like how did the process evolve? Because it's like immigrants, but you were born here, right?
I was born here, yeah. So
Okay.
my oldest brother, and then the second one, they were born over there. So they came here at like age 3, age 4.
Mm. Okay.
Um, and then the rest of us, we were born here. So
Okay. And then they moved to a better neighborhood so you guys can have better schooling and, evolve from there. So what is like your job? Like, what is your training?
um, well, I'm a full-time hospital administrator. And
Yay.
every honestly, every path has really been guided by God.
Yeah.
I never saw myself doing that type of job role, to be honest. I
Yeah.
was I was the nurse that worked night shift just because I didn't even want to see administration on day shift.
Ah, okay. So you were a nurse first and then you
So then I
moved
was a
over.
nurse first, and how I even I honestly like the details, right? Because I feel like God is very detailed. Is my senior year of high school.
Mhm,
I was like, I'm not sure what I actually want to do in college.
mhm,
I'm not even sure of the next step. So I ended up being like a volunteer for nurses aid my senior year of high school.
mhm.
They call basically that there's a kid having a seizure outside in a playground. I go
Okay.
and help this nurse and just try to do whatever I can to help her.
Mhm.
And after that, I like sat down and just kind of reflected over, and I was like, I want to be a nurse. That's what I want to be. And then that I told the nurse, and she's like, you should totally be a nurse. It's the best field ever. I had no
It
clue.
is.
Yeah,
And
and
it's
it's so
not
funny.
easy at all. So it's like my sister's the nurse, but it's tough,
Yeah, no,
but it's
absolutely.
rewarding.
Yeah.
Okay. So you became a nurse and then you moved up and became like a administrator.
No, actually, so after getting experience in the ER, That was
Mhm.
my specialty was ER.
Mhm.
I wanted to go back to school for my master's because I wanted to become a nurse practitioner.
Mhm.
So I applied for nurse practitioner, and then God comes through and nudges me again. And this time around, he's like, I want you to go back and get your master's in business administration. And I was like, what? That doesn't even make any sense.
Mhm.
I'm not a business person. I was like, that doesn't make any sense, God. And for a little bit, I was like I'm not gonna make a decision yet. Like I need more time, right? I was gonna start in the fall. So I ended up getting accepted. I was gonna start in the fall. Then I retracted my acceptance. And I said, you know what, God, fine. If you want me to go for my MBA, I will. I have no idea what you're doing, but sure. When people ask me, what are you getting? Oh, really? You're getting that? Like you're not getting something in nursing? So I ended up doing that, ended up graduating 2 years later. And everything after that, every single job after that was literally a referral from a referral to referral, referral, which is why I think it's so important to always do good work.
Yes.
And so,
Reputation is so important.
yes.
Yeah.
And I went from going up into management.
Mhm.
I did that for 2 years. And then I said, okay, I think I kind of get it. I get the management part. I feel like I have a good crew, managing well, and I decided to take another leap of faith. Someone else recommended a job and said, "You should be a hospital administrator." And I said, "Whoa, I don't have that experience." And they're like, "Doesn't matter. I always saw you as a leader." And I was just like taken away, right? This is someone that I used to work with in the ER 7 years prior. And they thought of me 7 years later.
Wow. Okay.
Like
You
that's
made an
only
impression.
God thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's
so,
amazing.
yeah, and so I was like, "All right, send me." I said, send me the job and I'll look into it." She's like, "Okay."
Mhm.
And I looked into it and sometimes just like, "What do you have to lose?" Right?
Just go for it.
Just go for it. All
Yeah.
they could do is say no.
That's it. That's the
Yeah.
worst thing they can say to you. They're not gonna beat you or put you in
Yeah.
jail. They'll just say no and you move on,
And you
right?
move on, right?
That's
So I
it.
did. So I applied for it. Then I took like some finance exam as well too, and
Uh,
I passed it, got an interview, made it to the second round, and then made it to the third round, and then they called me back and offered me a job, and I was like, "Whoa." All I did was say all I did was took a risk. That's it.
and it paid off.
And it paid off. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, okay. So I know you. I know you what you do. So how many more risks have you taken in the last 2 years?
Oh my God.
Yes. So you're like up to this point, you went from being a nurse to being a hospital administrator, which is
Mhm.
amazing. Congratulations. So
Thank you.
how do you go from there to now business owner, investor, all
Another
sorts of stuff?
another nudge. Another nudge, honestly.
Okay. Yeah.
So then it's like, all right, so I'm doing that. And then I said, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and purchase like a rental property. So I purchased that rental property. I land into Bigger Pockets on Instagram.
Mhm.
Pace is featured. And then I'm like, who is this guy? So then I start following this guy because I was originally going to join Ryan Pineda's program,
Mhm.
but it just the call fell through. So then I landed into Pace's page, and then all of a sudden I was like, saw, something about like lending, and so I said, I got a little bit of funds, like maybe I can probably start like that.
Mhm.
So I went ahead and took another risk, and I was just like, what do I have to lose? I started thinking of all the things that the worst case scenario is that I lose money, right? It's not the end of the world. It may seem like it, but it really isn't because some people get cancer and that's really their end of the world. Like if you start putting it into perspective, I'm like, I'm healthy, I'm alive, I can work extra, I can probably pick up another job, I can do so many different avenues to make it up.
Mhm.
And I decided to take that risk. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to do it. And I did it. And it hasn't been nothing but amazing only because I met amazing people like yourself And that was I never thought like I was gonna meet someone like you and have so much in common too, which is really awesome.
Yeah, which is weird. I think we always have like more in common with everybody than we think, right? Because
Mhm.
it's like, oh, whoa, you know, but once you talk to people, it's like just another human, right?
Yeah.
Which
Yeah,
is so
no.
funny. But wow. So okay, so you're doing okay, guys, she's doing great things. You own multiple businesses. You land on multiple deals all the time. Like you're a
Mhm.
rock star. So how do you manage, like how do you balance, because you literally working a W-2, like a 9 to 5, which is in the hospital field, which is
Mhm.
tough, right? Because
Mhm.
it's like long shifts.
Yeah, long
So
shifts.
how are you balancing the two worlds? Because they have nothing to do with each other. They're like night and day.
Honestly, it's been a little bit more difficult lately only because the the networking has spread out even
Hmm.
more. And
Hmm.
so definitely have been taking calls after I get off work.
Yeah.
Sometimes during my lunch if I can.
Hmm.
Mostly I don't though, just because it's really difficult. So because I work 6/12s, after that I'm always off 6 days. So
Yeah.
in that I do have a benefit, and that benefit is those 6 days I try to get as much as get done with like the lending business and
Hmm.
network as much as I can, and that's kind of how I have that planned out.
So
And
6 on here and then 6 on in this business, pretty
yes,
much. Wow,
yeah,
that's tough. So, are you married?
I'm not.
Like, culturally, what are your parents saying? Are they pushing you? Because I know some cultures will like, why are you still single? You're like 30, you're ancient by now. What's happening here, right? So
Yeah, I
is there
think
like any pressure or they're just like whenever you find somebody?
no, they're more like I think back in my 20s, they were like, "Oh, it's gonna happen," right? And then, like, then it was, like, my last relationship in my early 30s
Hmm.
was like, okay, like, I thought that was gonna be he was gonna be the
Yeah.
one, right? And it didn't turn out that way. But
Hmm.
then that was actually a blessing in disguise because that allowed me to seek God so much more that
Hmm.
it allowed my self-development to just
Yes.
now it's like a daily thing. My self-development is like a forever daily thing. Um,
Yes.
and that is something
Yes.
that I'm just like, I'm so content and so joyful. I can't even imagine what my other half will bring. Like they're just gonna be like that. You know what I mean? Because by myself, I'm already content. So it's
Oh, it's
like,
gonna be amazing.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. So I definitely um look forward to that. It's something I look forward to, but it's not something that I like dwell on.
Yeah, you're not feeling like pressured, like, oh my God, I have to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think most of the time, if you rush into it, you're gonna regret it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I
I mean,
think it's
marriage is hard. It's a lot of intentionality.
oh, it's a yeah, very intentional. Well, that was gonna bring my next topic. You are very intentional.
I try to be. I really do.
Very intentional. So how did that whole come about? Like you journaling, like we're gonna move on to like how you set up your day, you journaling, you're working out. Like, was it always that way, or was it just something one day you woke up and you're like, I have to get myself together. Like, what is going on?
No. I think it's always been a I'm telling you that path of self-development after my breakup.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what led me to wanting to work on myself. How can
Mm-hmm.
I be how can I prepare to be an amazing wife to an amazing husband? And I think that was like my goal initially, and then it really just turned into more of the self-development. And
Mm-hmm.
so for instance, the fitness, I've always worked out, but it was never like a consistent thing. Like I
Right.
did sports in high school and I've always jogged in my 20s. And then I was over that and then I decided to do HIIT, and that's kind of where I pretty much have stayed just because I enjoy different routines. I don't like the same one. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's why I enjoy HIIT. But with the HIIT, I remember I always went, but I always only went on my days off from work. I never went before work. And I think that was the next stepping stone to okay, this is this is my next phase. Like if I want to get even 1% better,
Mm-hmm.
God show me, give me strength. I cannot get up at 6 a.m. That was my struggle initially, which is hilarious. And I couldn't do it. I was like, it's so early. I would come sometimes, but not consistently.
Mhm.
And then about 3 years ago, it was 3 Januaries ago, I usually do the Daniel fast. So if for anyone that doesn't know what the Daniel fast is basically 21 days of prayer and fasting where I remove anything and everything that contains meat, that contains processed foods, no coffee, just water. And so for 21 days, I do that. And it's basically just me seeking out to God and saying, like, what do you want me to do this year? What
Mhm.
is your purpose? And what? And in the middle of that, I was like, God, give me strength to wake up early. I want more of a consistency with working out. Crazy fatigue. I'm not even joking here. The 21 days ends. I have a friend that says, hey, you should come to my F45 gym. It turns out the gym is only like 7 minutes from my house. Never knew that. So I said, okay, cool. I'll go ahead and join. And I said, oh, they have a 4:30 class, 4:30 in the morning.
AM.
And I
Cool.
said, and I was like, wow, that actually would work out before work because I go into work at 6:45. So then I
Mhm.
thought, like, I think that can actually work. And so I ended up waking up at 3:45 and I made it to the gym at 4:30. And I said, you know what? I'm just gonna try to go ahead and do it.
That
Been
was
do-
it.
been doing it since Monday through Thursday. Like, but
Holy moly. When do you
it's
sleep?
so I still make sure I get my 7 hours. Like I try to go to bed as
Okay.
soon as possible. Like I go to bed early.
Okay.
So it's not like I'm going to bed at 11. If I'm going to lose my sleep, I will
Yeah.
not work out. I will tell you that
Yeah.
right now. Like sleep to me is so important.
Mhm.
And so I was like, okay, I can do this. And it's
Mhm.
just easier, honestly. Like now you do it, it's like I feel weird when I don't.
Yes. Oh my God, the habit. The
Yeah.
habit when it forms at first it's like so hard to be consistent. But
Yes.
once you get going,
Yeah.
it becomes non-negotiable. And if you don't do it, you feel funny. Like
Yeah.
you feel
Some
off your game.
that's what it is. You feel off.
Yes.
Yes. And then you're kind of like, okay, like feels a little different. Let me at least go walk. Then
Right.
you
Right.
yeah,
Right.
so that's
So
kind of how that so every year I feel like God strips away something and makes it better.
mhm.
But
And you do this fast in the beginning of the year, like January time, and then you just
time.
know what to do. Oh wow. Okay. So currently you're lending and investing and doing all this stuff. You also own businesses. I have to highlight that, which is amazing. And you still have a full-time job. Guys, she works 6 12-hour shifts. Listen, I work 3 days. My max for 12 hours is 3 days. And then I'm like, the next day I have to get Bengay or something for my body. I'm so
I'm so
tired. I feel old.
yeah,
So I
no.
don't know how you do it. That's not easy. And to find that balance, that's amazing for you. So what is the future looking like for you? Like what are your next ventures? Like what do you feel like God is showing you your intuition? Where are you going? What do you want to do?
I just asked God to open up opportunities that are with people that he wants me aligned with.
Yes.
That's what I want. Like that's literally what I want. And then whatever that is, then that'll show me that next step,
Yeah.
right? Like
So
nothing's going to be perfect, but I understand
yeah.
at least I know that he's guiding me through me every day. All I know is that my first year of lending, like I do have the expectation of the second year being even better. So I will say
What
that.
you made in the first year. Drop the number.
I'm gonna say in the early like the early six figures.
Early six figures, guys. That's over $100,000. Okay,
Yeah,
and this year is you on track to do even more.
yeah, I would like to. That's the goal, right? Is
Yeah.
to be able to take care of my parents,
Yes.
to be able to be an irrational giver,
Mhm.
to be able to just feel I don't ever want to feel like I need to depend on money because I don't. God is my ultimate source. Like he's my financial provider. He's literally taking me from here to there. So whether or not if something were to happen or whatever, he's still going to be there.
all
and
the time.
that's true. That's truly my source, right? I don't depend on my husband to provide. I don't depend on because at any minute we're human. We can lose our jobs at any minute.
Yes.
So it's like,
Or you can get sick, or a lot of
or
things
you
can
can get
happen.
sick,
Yeah.
or yeah, no, absolutely. And it's like your ultimate source. He doesn't get sick.
Yeah.
He's God. He
That's
created
awesome.
heaven and earth.
I love it so much. Oh my God. Well, okay. So just last question. Did you ever go back to El Salvador to visit to,
I did last May. It
Yeah.
was amazing. Very
Yeah.
safe. I mean, that president has cleaned it up so
Yeah.
well. I
Yeah.
mean, so well.
Yeah.
And if anyone ever wants to go, highly recommend it just
Yeah.
because it's a really a great country. I think it was just covered up because of, the past gangs and people were not able to
Greed,
come.
political greed, and
Yes,
people greedy. Yeah.
but there's definitely a lot of beauty there for sure.
I love it. So you currently live in Texas?
Currently live in Texas. Yep. I would love to purchase a property in like Vegas or Arizona
Hmm.
just because I can avoid hurricanes.
Oh, you guys get hurricanes there?
Yeah, we get hurricanes. I think we get everything now, honestly. It went from like
Really?
hurricanes this year, we got a tornadoes, we got the
Texas? Wow.
yes, yes,
Okay.
and we got the freeze, this unexpected freeze that happened
Hmm.
a few years back and broke everyone's like busted everyone's pipelines and it was insane. Floods. Yeah. I mean,
Everything,
nah,
pretty much.
I feel like it's seasonal. It doesn't happen all the time, but it can happen, right?
Okay.
So nothing surprises me in Houston, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it. So please tell the audience where they can find you, how you can help, like what you do.
So they can contact me on Instagram at Brenda Builds Wealth. That's going to be my main one,
Mhm.
or Facebook as well too, under my name Brenda Villafranco. But Instagram's probably the best, to be honest.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you're someone that wants to collaborate or doesn't have any money but has deals, definitely bring them.
Love this. Love this. Guys, reach out to her. She's like a short-term lender, PML, lends on earnest money if you're on the investing side of things. So just Brenda Builds Wealth on Instagram and she will answer your DMs. Brenda, thank you so much for your time.